For the longest time, artificial intelligence felt like something straight out of a science fiction movie, right? But it's not the future anymore. It is right here, right now, and it's woven into the daily lives of hundreds of millions of people all over the world. So today, let's unpack this global AI moment. Who's using these powerful new tools? Where in the world are they? And what are they actually asking? To really get what's happening with AI, you first have to grasp the sheer scale of its adoption. This isn't just a small group of tech nerds anymore. We're talking about one of the fastest technological revolutions in human history. 700 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's the estimated number of people using ChatGPT every single week. To put that into perspective, that's about 10% of the entire adult population on Earth. This isn't a niche product. It's practically a global utility now. And this chart really puts that explosion into context. Think about it. For the personal computer to reach mass adoption, it took about 20 years. The internet did it faster in around 5. Generative AI, it blew past those same milestones in just 2 years. The speed is frankly unlike anything we've ever seen before. So, who are these hundreds of millions of people? Well, the picture is changing, and it's changing fast. The user base is becoming way more diverse and widespread than you might think. In the first few months after these tools launched, it was a bit of a boys' club. About 80% of active users were men. But that has completely flipped. As of mid-2025, that gap is gone. In fact, weekly active users are now slightly more likely to be female. This isn't just a tool for one group anymore. It's being integrated broadly across all of society. And the story of where this is happening is just as dynamic. At first, usage was really clustered in high-income countries. But that's not the story anymore. The fastest growth is now happening in low- and middle-income nations, which points toward a future where AI use could be much, much more evenly spread across the globe. But let's be clear, we're not there yet. Data from the Anthropic AI Usage Index shows a really stark digital divide. You've got technologically advanced economies like Singapore and Canada using AI assistance way more than you'd expect for their population size. Meanwhile, emerging economies like India and Nigeria show much lower adoption rates for now. And that gap, that's the central tension in AI's global story today. Okay, so we know who is using AI and where they are, but what are they actually doing with it? The answer is probably not what the headlines have led you to believe. Here is the big surprise. About 70% of how consumers use ChatGPT has absolutely nothing to do with the job. We hear all this talk about AI for workplace productivity, but the data shows its primary use is for our personal lives, for learning, for planning, for just exploring our curiosity. And this slide really shows how our priorities shift. Overall, we use AI most for practical guidance and just looking up information. But the second we're on the clock at work, boom, writing tasks like drafting emails and summarizing long documents, they jump right to the #1 spot. This brings us to a really key distinction. Are we using AI to augment our own abilities or to automate tasks entirely? Think of augmentation as having a creative partner to bounce ideas off of. Automation is more like just handing off a task and waiting for the result. And what's really interesting is that research shows countries with higher AI adoption tend to use it more for augmentation, as a collaborator. Look, when a technology this big hits this fast, it's going to raise some very human questions and concerns. So, how are we all feeling about this AI explosion? Well, recent research points to a pretty significant trend. For a lot of people, concern about AI is winning out over excitement. For instance, a Pew Research survey found that half of the people they asked were more concerned than excited about AI's role in daily life. Only 10% were more excited. That points to a pretty widespread feeling of caution. And this quote from someone in that survey, it really gets to the heart of that anxiety. They said, "I believe the experience of encountering these things and overcoming them is essential to forming our character. The underlying fear is that by making things too easy, AI might rob us of the very struggles that help us grow." And this isn't just some abstract philosophical worry. The data shows these concerns are very specific. For instance, over half the people in one survey believe AI will actually harm our ability to think creatively, and half believe it will damage our ability to form meaningful relationships. And here's a fascinating paradox for you. The very generation that has embraced AI the most is also the one that's most concerned. One survey found 61% of adults under 30 believe AI will make people worse at thinking creatively. They're using the tool, but they are also deeply skeptical about its long-term effects. So, with this mix of lightning-fast adoption on one hand and these deep-seated concerns on the other, it really feels like we're standing at a crossroads. The patterns we see today suggest two very different futures for how AI will shape our world. One path is divergence. This is a future where the productivity gains from AI get concentrated in regions that are already wealthy, making global inequality even worse and reinforcing that digital divide we saw earlier. The other path is convergence, where AI becomes a tool that actually helps close the economic gap, spreading its benefits more equally around the world. The path we take might just come down to a choice we all make, repeated millions of times a day. It's that difference between augmentation and automation we talked about. Do we primarily use AI as a co-pilot, an expert advisor that enhances our own thinking and decision-making, or do we treat it as a coworker, delegating entire tasks and just asking it to do the work for us? Ultimately, that's the question we're all facing, isn't it? AI can be the expert advisor that makes us smarter, or the tireless worker that might make some of us obsolete. The technology itself doesn't decide. We do. So, which future will we choose to build?